Hello, I'm Kate. Welcome to the Hawthorn Cottage Craft podcast. This is episode 19 and today is Tuesday the 9th of January 2018. You can find me on Instagram as Kate_Hawthorn Cottage Craft, on Ravelry as a runner bean. There's a Ravelry group for the podcast, which is the Hawthorn Cottage Craft podcast group, and there you'll find show notes for each episode. There are cal threads there and finished object threads, and any chat takes place over there. Welcome if you're here for the very first time. It's lovely to see you. I hope you feel very welcome here in the cottage, and welcome back if you're a returning viewer, and Happy New Year to you all. It has been a long time since I've been here on a podcast episode. It was the end of November, I think, when I last recorded a podcast episode, but I did take part in Vlogmas this year, the 24 days, and I had a thoroughly good time. I really enjoyed it. It was quite strange when it finished. I was still looking at moments of my day and thinking I should be recording this, but it was lovely to share my run up to Christmas with you, and thank you all for your support in that. It's hard to believe we're almost in mid-January already. But welcome anyway. I hope you have your cuppa and you're ready for quite a lot of chat today. There's quite a lot to tell you about, and maybe we should just get on with it. The first thing I want to do is tell you the winner of the Tiny Owls giveaway that I ran in the group. It seems like such a long time ago that I put this up there, and you've waited long enough. I was actually going to keep it until the end of this episode, but as I said, you've waited long enough, and I think I should tell you who has won that. Just at the end of November, I think it was, Lee from the Luli podcast, who I'm sure you all know, released a beautiful pattern collection called the Tiny Owls collection, and it was for mittens, a hat and socks with a beautiful owl motif around it. And Lee very kindly donated a copy of that to the podcast. And we also had the donation of this beautiful yarn from Lay Family Yarns and Autumn Leaves. It's a mix of 85% superwash merino and 15% Donegal neps. So there was this beautiful yarn and the pattern collection. And I'd asked you to go over to the group and write down what your favourite holiday traditions were, be it Christmas traditions or if you celebrate another holiday in December, what your favourite traditions are. And it was lovely to read all the entries. We had 51 people entered, and I think most of the entries focused on family, the things that we do with family each year that are very, very special to us. One of my favourite traditions is the actual putting up the tree at the very beginning of the season. We put our tree up quite early on, and the children decorate it. I decorate the rest of the house, they decorate the tree, and then we sit down with hot chocolate and watch Polar Express, and it just signifies the start of the season for us, and it's special in that regard. And just spending time over the few weeks with each other has always been part of my favourite part of Christmas. But 51 people gave their different traditions, and it's worth going over to have a wee read at those to see what everybody else does. Random number generator chose number 44, who is Irish Cat on Ravelry, and I actually didn't know her by her Ravelry name, so I was really surprised when I went over to check who it was, and it's the one and only Catherine Hastings, who is the organiser of Atlantic Knitscape. So I'm thrilled, Catherine, that you won this giveaway. I think I have your address, but just send it to me anyway. I know I'll see you at some point this year, but I'm sure you want your yarn earlier than that. And also, I'll pass on your details to Lee so that she can gift you her pattern collection. Catherine wrote in hers entry that she loved giving her Auntie Mary a phone call on Christmas Day. She's the only surviving aunt that she has, and she is 87. She has a very big heart and always makes me smile. Family's what Christmas and the holidays is all about, and it was lovely to see all the entries there, as I said. So Catherine, if you contact me, I'll get that prize on the way to you, And thank you to everybody who entered. It was a joy to read your entries. As most of you know, I have been on a bit of a sweater kick in the last few months, but over the Christmas period and since I last spoke to you, that changed just a little bit. Just for a few weeks it has come back, but over the Christmas season I put the sweaters aside pretty much, and I worked almost exclusively on socks. I am a slow sock knitter, I've said that before, but you wouldn't have thought that through December. I just knit socks constantly, and I really enjoyed it. Now I'm glad to be back to the sweaters, and the socks have slowed down, but certainly over Christmas it was all about the socks, and all my FOs are sock FOs this time. Hopefully when I show you everything today, the light will be okay. It's a very dark day here. Lights are all on in the house, but the light from the overhead lights isn't great. So I have put on a daylight lamp and it's in front of me, and hopefully that will show up the colours well enough and it's not going to wash out everything completely. I can only apologise, but I can't do very much else about it. Hopefully this will show up the colours really well. The first FO were my Christmas socks, and these were knit in the West Yorkshire Spinners Candy Cane colourway that they released for Christmas. And the green for the cuffs, heels and toes was their chocolate lime colour. All the socks that I knit are on 2.5mm, which is a US 1.5 needle. That never varies. The style of needle that I use and the method I use to knit them might vary, but the actual needle size always stays the same. So I knit these on a 2x2 rib, and then it was a simple slip stitch pattern. I didn't follow any particular pattern for that. I did note down the stitches that I used on my Ravelry page, projects page. I'm not very good at keeping those up to date, but I did for these. And I think it was 5 stitches and a slip stitch for 2 rows and then a knit row. But go and check my page just to verify that. 2x2 rib, as I said, I did the slip stitch pattern, and just so that I could keep the stripes even, I put in the afterthought heel at the end, which I love. I think it's one of my favourite heels. Some of the socks I knit have the Fish Lips Kiss. We also had the heel flap and gusset. We did the lot this time, and apart from the heel flap and gusset, I think this is my favourite. It fits the best. And then it was just a rounded toe. So this yarn was beautiful. I really enjoyed it. Because of the striping, it really did fly up. It only took, I would say, about a week for me to knit these, and that is very fast for me to knit socks. And I enjoyed them so much, and my daughter liked them so much that I knit her, and she got them for Christmas, a little pair of shorty socks, which I don't have here, but I'll insert a photograph. She loves the shorty socks, just a vanilla sock pattern. There was 15 rows, put in the heel and then the foot, and it was the Fish Lips Kiss heel for those. So we both had a pair of candy cane striped socks that we wore on Christmas Day. I kept these for Christmas Day, and they have been worn and washed, but hopefully they look okay there on the blockers. So that was the first finished object. I really enjoyed knitting those. The second finished object, was another pair of socks, and these were my Advent socks. Before Christmas, I think it was maybe back in September, I think it was September, a group of podcasters, basically organised through the Anders Mill Knits podcast. Emily was the chief organiser of this. We all kind of fell into place beside her and promoted it. But she organised the 24 Days of Cheer Advent Swap, and we were all assigned someone to swap an Advent calendar with, where we made up our own minis, skeins from yarn that we had in the house. It was all fingering weight and sock yarn, and then just other little bits and pieces went into it. I was paired with Kathy, who is Kathy Yarnaholic on Instagram, And it turned out that Kathy and I went to the same knit group and would meet each other occasionally. So it worked out really well that we could actually physically swap our prize and didn't have to post it. But Kathy went above and beyond with her swap. I pictured it every day in Vlogmas, and she had put it together in this beautiful Hessian bag and little parcels in it. And every day, it was the very first thing I did every day was to open her parcel to see what I was getting that day. And I got beautiful stitch markers and a recipe. I got a beautiful mug, and just those things appeared every so often. But the yarn that she put in to her advent calendar was beautiful, and it ranged. Now it's funny, you get a real picture of the person who gives you the yarn in an advent swap like that, because you can see where her likes are. We had to be careful because, as we do know each other, and we're both from the same area, we both have a favourite indie dyer, Fine Fish Yarns. So we tried to keep as little Fine Fish yarns in this advent swap as possible, because we would have found that we had fairly similar yarns in our stash. So it was lovely to see what else Kathy had been knitting with. And there were some other Irish dyers in there. All the skeins, mini skeins, are listed on the project page for these socks as well, and you'll see the different dyers that are there. I got to knit with yarn that I'd never knit with before. We had some Sweet Sparrow yarns, and Nora George featured quite a lot. So it was lovely to try out all these different yarns, and it just kind of put all these places on my shopping list. So without further ado, this was my finished object. They're identical, and I had so much fun. Every day I put in the new stripe, and I kept to that really religiously, so that on the 24th I cast off and was able to wear these just after Christmas. I, for the first time, knit them concurrently. I did them on DPNs, 2.5mm, and I used the Knit Pro Zings, and it has given me such a love for DPN sock knitting again, more so than the Magic Loop. I go through phases, but I'm very much on a DPN kick, and I love the Knit Pro Zings. I think they're my favourite double pointed needles. And in order to knit them together, I bought a second set just so that I could work at the same time. I again did the 2x2 rib, which worked well. I tried to consider the amount of rows I would put into each stripe so that I could use all the yarn that I was getting. And I was doing a 7-row stripe, but it meant that towards the end, I have a small foot. I'm a UK 4, which is a European 37. I'm not sure what that is in American sizing. So I have a small foot, which meant that I was starting to run out of foot, and my stripes had to get shorter. As someone pointed out, and if I had thought about it at the time, and hindsight is a great thing, I should have knit these toe up so that I could put an even amount of stripes into each colour, and then just knit the leg as long as it took. But all 24 colours are here. So it was 7 rows until about mid-foot, and then I had to shorten them a wee bit. All the stripes are equal around the heel. I wanted to keep the stripe the same, so this time I put in a Fish Lips Kiss heel because I wanted to keep it going in the order. And as I said, I'm not as happy with the fit of a Fish Lips Kiss heel, but I still think it works well enough. And I think that might have been one of my favourite colours. I can't remember the name of the colour, but I believe this was a Nora George yarn. That's maybe better. It's blowing out a little bit. So that would have been one of my favourite colours, I think. These are lovely. I love these socks. They are bright and cheery, and I'm going to have a lot of fun wearing them. And thank you to Emily from Anders Mills Knits, who really was the chief organiser in this. As I said, I just facilitated people joining up. And just thank you to Kathy for all the effort she put into the actual calendar that she gave me. On day 25, I got a full skein of yarn, and I was absolutely thrilled. I should have brought it over with me, but it was a homespun house Christmas at Hogwarts. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that yet. I actually have another skein of it in my stash. I hadn't realised that that was coming, and I'd bought it too. So I don't know whether to knit socks with it or to keep both skeins and knit a beautiful shawl with it. We'll have to wait and see. I'm letting it sit in the stash and settle in, and we'll see what it becomes. So that was pair number 3, if you include the shorties. Pair number 4 were my Christmas Eve cast on. Now, Christmas Eve cast ons usually take me quite a long time to finish. Last year I knit the Dashing Through the Snow socks from the colourway was Dashing Through the Snow from Fine Fish Yarns, and I had started them on Christmas Eve and then frogged them and then restarted them on New Year's Eve, and I think I was still knitting them when I first started this podcast at the end of January. So it can be quite a slow process, but not so this year. This year, I, like many other people, because Danny from Little Bobbins started this tradition, it felt only right to cast on the new pattern that she released before Christmas. Her pattern, 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, was stunning, and I'll insert a photograph of that here. So Danny released this pattern, and I felt I had to knit it, and I had to decide which yarn to knit it with. When I was in Rhinebeck in October, I was able to see Villenvine Yarns at Indie Untangled, and there I picked up a sparkly yarn in my favourite colour, and it couldn't have been more appropriate for this pattern. And I'm actually going to put them on the blockers because I think they look best on the blockers, so just bear with me. The colourway that I picked up was Venus Flytrap. Hopefully I'm not buying these too much. And it's from her Blitz base, which was 75% merino, 20% nylon and 5% gold stellina, which was just lovely for Christmas. A little bit of sparkle. Every girl likes a bit of sparkle at Christmas. And it was the Blitz base, as I said, and the colourway was Venus Flytrap, which is just the most beautiful shade of green. Almost there. And these are my socks. And this was such an effective but straightforward pattern, and it flew up. If you want to try something lacy but haven't tried lacy patterns before, this is a great one to start with, because there's just that wee tiny bit of interest in the sock. It's mainly vanilla, but just on each leg there's a little bit of lace that is just, and the pattern's just carried down into the toe. This yarn was just brilliant for it. Tree motif and beautiful green yarn. And I don't think these are, although they're my Christmas socks and that I cast them on Christmas Eve, the pattern names 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, to me these are just beautiful winter socks. And I'm going to really enjoy wearing these throughout the rest of the winter. I did the 1x1 twisted rib and then worked the pattern. I can't tell you too much about that, and that it's a paid for pattern. And in this one it was the heel flap and gusset, which I haven't knit, I think, since I knit Peter's socks, but I really enjoyed doing the heel flap and gusset again, and the rounded toe. And again, I did these concurrently. I did them on the Knit Pro Zings, 2.5mm US 1.5, and they just whizzed up. So if you haven't seen the pattern, and I'm sure you have because it was very popular over Christmas, if you haven't seen it, you should go over and have a look and even knit them now. They might have a Christmassy name, but to me these are a really versatile pattern and can be used at any time of the year. So that was pair number 4, did we say? And I was really pleased with those. The final finished object, you'll be glad to hear, was a pair of socks that I cast on just around Rhinebeck time, and they were my Rhinebeck socks. And this was a funny pair of socks, not the pattern, funny in that I don't know where my head was when I was knitting them. I started them before I went away, and I was using the Ninja Chicken's sock blank, which I loved. It was beautiful. I've waxed lyrical about it on other episodes. But I was quite slow in knitting these. The pattern is from Layton, who is the crazy sock lady, and it was the Rhinebeck is Calling socks. And I love them. My problem, I think, occurred in that I started them on magic loop. And for some reason, it wasn't working. I was using the wooden needles because I'd been flying. I've talked about those before. I think they're great for vanilla socks, but they're not good for a pattern sock. This was a pattern sock. They slowed me down, which meant I got frustrated and fed up. And I had got the first sock finished pre-Christmas. And I thought when I got my other socks done, do you know, I don't really want to go into the new year too far with these hanging over my head. I would love to get them done. I want to wear them because I do love the pattern. And in my head, I thought I had the second sock done as far as the heel, so I only had the foot to do. So I was a little disappointed when I took them out of the bag and realised I was about 4 rows into the cuff and I had the entire sock to knit. But what I decided to do, and I think I had swapped at one point before Christmas them from the wooden needles, the Knit Picks Caspians, I'd swapped them from that to my Addy circular needles for Magic Loop, and they were going much quicker on that. But because of my double pointed needle love, I changed them again to the Knit Pro Zings, and I'm sure that's probably not the wisest move because I know different needles can provide different tension, different gauge, but it was worth it. I finally got my Rhinebeck is Calling socks finished, and I love them. I love the way the sock blank has knit up. Sock number 2. I love all the greens and the greys and the little pops of colours that come up. And I absolutely adore these socks. I did a 1x1 twisted rib again. It was a heel flap and gusset. Like all my socks, 64 stitches, and I'm just thrilled that they're finished. I finished them on New Year's Day, so they were my first 2018 finished object. And I love them. So it was well worth getting them finished, so now I can wear them. I haven't worn them yet. I wanted to show them to you in pristine condition. So I'll get those on, and they're a lovely memory of Rhinebeck as well because I did knit them a little when I was there. So those are all my FOs, quite a lot. And I don't think the FOs will be coming out as quickly over the next few weeks, but hopefully there will be a few as we progress. So what am I working on now? I am still working on socks. I have a new pair of socks on the needles that I cast on New Year's Day. And I was excited to get these cast on. I've had the yarn since October, but I haven't seen it since October. When I was in Rhinebeck, I bought quite a lot of yarn. And it really was my Christmas gift. The entire trip and whatever I bought was really my Christmas gift this year. But I wanted something for under the tree, so one of the skeins of yarn that I got there, I handed it straight to Peter when I came home and said, wrap that, that's for Christmas. Which he did. He also got a messenger to deliver the yarn to me on Christmas, and I will insert a photograph of my messenger here. And that gives you a clue as to what the yarn is. I had always, since I've seen it first, coveted this yarn. And this yarn is Dobby is a Free Elf from Nomadic Yarns. Hopefully, there we go. And this has been in and out of my basket since I first saw it. I put it in, took it out, but because of postage to the UK and customs, it was a bit prohibitive for a skein of yarn. But because I knew I was going over and staying in Canada, I got it sent to Canada and was able to pick it up at Selma's when I was there. And it has been really hard not to go looking for it up until Christmas. It's her Brit sock base, which is self-striping, and it's 80% superwash blue-faced Leicester and 20% nylon. And I like knitting with blue-faced Leicester anyway, so this is starting to knit up beautifully. Again, it's 64 stitches, and I've done a 2x2 rib, and the striping is coming up really, really well. I'm on my Knit Pro Zings, 2.5mm US 1.5. And now I'm knitting these separately because just with the way the skein is rolled into the ball. But they are working up really, really quickly again. The pattern I'm using is the Vanilla Latte Socks, which is a free pattern on Ravelry by Virginia Rose Jeans. And it's basically a 6x2 rib. So it's just a little bit to break up the vanilla nature of the sock. Give it a little bit of interest without having a heavy pattern, because I just wanted something quick. And these will mainly, I would say, be knit when I'm in the car. So we're back to the slow sock knitting. I want to maintain the stripe, so I have, if you can just see it, the yarn in for my afterthought heel. And I'm just now starting down the foot. I got the first bit done fairly quickly, and I was in the car on Saturday. If you saw on Instagram, my daddy celebrated his 100th birthday on Saturday, which is just an amazing thing to have happened, and it was a fabulous day. So we drove down to see him, and the 2-hour drive, I was able to get, I think I did about half the leg on the drive. So I'm really, really enjoying knitting these. I actually don't want to knit them too quickly because I love the yarn so much. But I don't think that'll be a problem because it is back to the slow sock knitting. I will do the foot and it'll be a rounded toe again. And maybe by the next time I'll have the first sock complete. So socks are still on the menu. As I said, just maybe a little bit slower because I'm back onto my sweaters. And that's important because the sweater knit along is still going on within the group. If you are knitting a sweater at all that you have, whips were allowed. So if you'd started, we started it in October, but whips were allowed. If you're knitting a sweater, please join in to the Garments Galore Cal that I'm running with Selma from the Little Big Knits podcast. We are knitting any adult garment up until the 31st of March. We have in both Ravelry groups, on the Little Big Knits group and my own, there are chatter threads, and it's brilliant to see everybody chattering away and showing their works in progress there. I'm not very good at keeping up with the chatter thread. I do pop in now and then and see what's going on. I do check the finished objects thread and love everything there. Keeping chatter out of it for the purposes of prize giving at the end. But it's fabulous to see everybody's projects. Everybody's working so hard. There are finished objects in the main finished object thread. There are 2 special threads, finished object threads, one in my group and one in Selma's. If you're knitting your very first garment, there is a thread in Selma's group where you can post your finished object there. And if you're knitting a garment that is over 1400 meters, then you can post that in the special thread in my group, finished object thread. So you can double dip in both groups. There are many, many other sweater knit-alongs going on in the podcasting world, have a look at those. There's a colour work knit-along in the Ninja Chickens group. So if you're knitting any colour work sweater, put it in there, a colour work garment. And there are other ones throughout the podcasting world. Just have a look, and if it's in their rules, then feel free to double dip in all of them. Gives you a better chance. When you're putting in all that work, it's nice to be in with a chance of winning a prize. And thank you to those who have contributed prizes to the Cal already. I have yarn, I have a project bag, and when I've them all together, I will show you what those are. And they are really exciting, and I think you will like them. So please feel free to take part in the knit along. As part of the knit along, I am knitting my sweaters, and the one that I have done the most work on is my Fern and Feather sweater. And I started this after Rhinebeck. I bought the yarn in Rhinebeck. And the Fern and Feather pattern is by Jennifer Steingass, and it was published in the By Hand magazine, the Puget Sound edition. And it's really popular pattern. All her patterns are very popular at the moment, and they're beautiful. And I'm really enjoying knitting this. It's probably a very good first time colour work project if you're thinking of doing colour work for the first time. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I am knitting it with a group of friends who are coming to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, of which I'll speak more about later. But there's a group of us knitting this sweater, and it should be lovely to see all the varieties of colours that have been used when we all get together. But this is mine, and as I said, I started this just after Rhinebeck because I bought the yarn there, and it was Green Mountain Spinnery, and their worsted weight, and the colours were, the main colours grey, which is 8790, and the reddy colour, which is this one, is chestnut, and it's 8575. And this sweater has whizzed along. I think I was there the last time I spoke. So I finished the body. I have the first sleeve finished, and I'm now on the second sleeve, and that probably won't take too long to finish. The worsted weight works up very quickly. I'm knitting it on 3.75mm, which is a US 5, and a 4mm, which is a US 6, and I've been knitting it on my Luca needles, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. I still have an issue with some of them screwing them in, and the join, once they're joined, they're fabulous. I mean, they're very slick, they're a beautiful needle, but a couple of the tips, I have difficulty getting them attached, but once they're attached, they're fabulous. So I really enjoy knitting with those. I have, for the first time, I'm doing the sleeves on double pointers. I thought, seeing I was on a double pointed roll, I would keep going with it, and that's working really well. So I can imagine this will be finished by the weekend. I'm really wanting to have it finished. My colour work, to an expert eye, is probably quite amateur looking. I think once it blocks out, it will really flatten and even. I think it's a wee bit uneven. The inside floats look really well, and I think just it's the nature of the yarn, and once it's blocked, it'll flatten out. But it's a lovely fit on. I'm really pleased with the fit. It's going to be a very cozy, warm sweater. I love this yarn. It is certainly a rustic yarn. And it smells absolutely delicious. But I think it's going to be quite soft. And I don't think I'm going to need too many layers underneath. I don't think it's going to be scratchy. For me anyway. A vest or a long sleeve t-shirt at the most underneath. And I'm just really, really pleased with it. So this will certainly be ready for Edinburgh. There'll be no issues with that. So that's one of the sweaters that I'm working on at the moment. The other sweater you will be surprised to see is my Scully. And my Scully cardigan, it's funny, I had started it with great gusto when I initially started it. I was very excited by it. And then just because other projects got in the way, it fell by the wayside for a while. And it was almost hard to get the motivation to go back to it. I find if something's on the needles too long, it can lose the impetus with me. And part of the reason it had also got set aside, and I've discussed this in previous episodes, was because I had knit the gauge all wrong. I was knitting with the wrong needles and I wasn't happy with it, and I eventually frogged it. I wasn't sure whether I would frog it and start it again, but I really wanted to, because this pattern was a special pattern for me. It's getting very crumpled. It's the Scully cardigan by Carrie Westerman, named after Louise Scully from the Knit British podcast. And Louise had helped me pick the yarn. All of this, you know. It was important to me to get it finished, and I really, really want to wear this in Edinburgh. So I had restarted it, and I wasn't sure what I was going to think of it this time. I was obviously knitting on the wrong needle size. The yarn I am using is Black Air Yarns West Country Tweed, and it's the natural colour grey. A very untidy roll because I had frogged. This is the colour. And because I was knitting it on such small needles, I felt as though I was knitting chainmail, and I thought that the texture of the yarn was hard, and really it was quite unpleasant to knit. I found it sore. But that was my own stupidity. It was nothing at all to do with the yarn. The yarn, in fact, is incredibly soft. And now that I'm knitting it on the correct needles for me, which is the 3.75mm US 5 and the 4mm, which is a US 6, now that I'm knitting it on the correct needles, this yarn feels entirely different. It's soft, it's bouncy, and I am starting to whiz through it. I got back to it again the other day, and I am enjoying this so much, to the point that the sleeve of the previous sweater gets set aside, and I do need to finish it. And I'm really, really enjoying this project. The mindset has changed, and I am really looking forward to getting this knit. I had a little look, and the yarn is a mix of Shetland. The ewe that was the yarns from was the Shetland, and mixed with either a Teeswater or Romney Ram, and there's some Black Welsh Mountain sheep in here as well. And it really is soft, and this is where I'm at the moment. I also had a bee in my bonnet about reverse stocking stitch. I think because I was finding it difficult anyway to knit. Reverse stocking stitch seemed to be this awful thing. It's just stocking stitch. Anyway, stupid hat off, and we are now whizzing, and I love it. There's a little bit of lace patterning at the bottom, and then again round the yoke when I get to it there'll be more lace patterning. So I'm working on the waist shaping at the moment, and I'm whizzing up it. I'm loving it. It is soft. This is certainly not going to be a scratchy yarn. I love the fact that there are the little pops of tweedy colours, so this will go with absolutely everything. There are blues, reds, yellows in there. It'll go with anything that I want to wear it with. So I really, really can't wait to wear that at Edinburgh Yarn Festival this year. And that leads me on to some incredibly exciting news. And I am delighted to say that this year I am a podcaster in the Podcaster Lounge. There was a selection process this year and I was more than thrilled to find out that I had been chosen to be part of the Podcast Lounge that is run by Blacker with Louise from Knit British. And there's a fabulous group of audio and video podcasters there, and I'm really excited about meeting them all, which I'm sure you will be too. And the list of podcasters who are involved is released today and will be on the Edinburgh Yarn Festival website, which I will link to here and in the show notes. So go over and see who's there. It's a huge, huge list, and I know that you are going to be thrilled when you see who's coming. I can't wait to meet you and meet as many of you as possible. If you're going to be there, please come and say hello to me. Tell me who you are on Instagram, because sometimes I'm poor at putting names and faces together. But I'm really looking forward to meeting you all. I was very excited to be there last year, and I can feel the excitement building this year. It's about 8 weeks, I think. So the Podcaster Lounge will be there for people to come and meet everyone, and I'm sure there will be other activities organised around the Podcast Lounge that you'll be able to take part in. But in conjunction with that, as of there was last year, there will be a knit along. The Blacker Podcal is back. And I wanted to tell you about that here so that you can start to think about it. The cast on is on Saturday the 13th of January, which is this Saturday, and it runs until Sunday the 11th of March, which is the weekend before the festival. That gives you time to finish and block whatever you knit. The one rule is that you knit with Blacker yarns. You can knit any pattern that you want, and there is a chatter thread in the Blacker Yarns group on Ravelry. So go over there. People are already chatting there about what they're planning to knit and which yarn they're planning to knit with. There will be an FO thread there, and there's prizes for the chatter threads, and at the end there will also be a discount code from Blacker Yarns for those who have taken part. And the great joy about this is that even if you're not coming to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and not everybody can, distance, whatever reasons, this Blacker Podcal is open to everyone. Whether you're coming or not, you can take part and put up your finished objects on the thread. But it will be lovely if you have knit with your Blacker yarns and taken part to see those finished objects in Edinburgh as well. I'm planning at the moment to knit the new Kate Davies design Carbeth, her new sweater, and I'm planning to use brushwork. Now it's all in the planning stages. I'm waiting on the shade card to come from Blacker so that I can pick which shade of green that I'm going to knit with. It will be in green. The Edinburgh Yarn Festival this year actually runs into St Patrick's Day, and I might be in Scotland, but the Irish contingent will be there in full force, and we want to celebrate St Patrick's Day, so I want to wear green on St Patrick's Day, and I think I'll use Blacker yarns to do that. I do need to think about the pattern a little bit more. It's a cropped pattern and it's positive ease, and I'm not sure with my stature whether that'll work, but I think it might, and those are my plans at the moment. But please take part in the Blacker Podcal. It's welcome and open to everyone. If you're taking part in that and you happen to knit a sweater, put it into the Garments Galore Cal. You can certainly mix and match those. And go and see who is all going to be at the Podcast Lounge, because that is exciting too. There's a lot to think about and a lot of knitting to do in the next few months, but hopefully I'll see you in a couple of weeks and we'll see the progress on the sweaters and maybe a finished object in there. Until I see you again, enjoy your knitting and have a lovely few weeks.